Well, here we are having a look, as promised, at how we go about layering string sounds together to create an authentic string orchestra sound. Now, I'm going to be doing this on my Korg PA5X. If you have any other PA product, or indeed you have any of the Yamaha lines such as Genos, Genos 2, or the PSR SX series, the principles remain exactly the same. So what I've done to save a little bit of time, I've put 3 different ensemble string sounds. So by ensemble, what I mean is they're already in a state where you can use them as a full orchestra. So there we've got Real Strings 1. That's already, as I said, an ensemble sound. In upper 2, we've got Movie Strings. And in upper 3, we've got Real Strings 2. Now actually, as you're probably hearing, they're all very, very similar. There will be some subtle differences, and there are, whether it's coming through on the recording, that's difficult to say, but each one of those on its own would make a great string orchestra sound. But I want to go a stage further and actually thicken that sound up a little bit and change some octaves to create some more authentic features of a string orchestra. So we could mix all 3 together. Now, I'm starting to hear, I can hear the distinction in the sound, but actually all we've done is we've layered 3 very similar sounds all together at exactly the same octave. So we've just thickened the sound up a little bit now. But as we've said in the article, think of a string orchestra. You have a violin section, you have violas, and then the bass comes from the cellos. Yes, you could add a contrabass, but we're probably going to use the bass sound in the style as our absolute deepest bass. So let's concentrate on violins, violas, and cellos. So what I'm going to do very simply is go into the mixer here, and I'm going to go to my tuning section, and upper 1, upper 2, upper 3. Actually, if I look at these middle dials, they're all set to 0. So they're all set at their standard octave. What I'm going to do with upper 1 is I'm going to take that up an octave, which is actually up 12 semitones. So I've gone to a figure of plus 12. The movie strings that I've got in upper 2, I'm going to take that down to minus 12, and that will create our cellos. The other real strings 2, I'm going to keep that at the standard pitch, so that will be in between the other 2, so that will create our violas. So let's have a listen to them separately now. I'm going to mute upper 2 and upper 3. So all you're hearing is upper 1. And there's that nice high-pitched sound, probably a little bit too high to be just used on its own. But when we now add the deep cellos to it, now, hopefully you're starting to hear the distinction between the high notes and the low notes. So when we play a single note on here, we're actually going to be hearing 2 notes come out. Now we had our third section, which we left at the standard pitch. So if we add that in as well, so now we've got a nice thick layer of 3 strings all at 3 different octaves. Obviously, you can balance the volumes accordingly to get it exactly where you want it. I've emphasised the higher pitch a little bit because that's now, if it makes sense to you, our weakest sound, because it's quite high pitched. It's not got as much body as the other 2 sounds. So I've boosted the volume against the other 2, and when they're all layered, that should sort of balance things out nicely. Now, there are lots of other things we can think about, and that's reverb, and I've got some chorus on here. And if you have a look at my settings here, I've got an equal amount of reverb, that's FX1 on the Korg PA5X here. Got it set to 60, and I've put a good amount of chorus on each one as well. Then the chorus will again multiply that sound effect there. Now, we've got our basic sound, and we've done a very rough volume mix. Obviously, you can fine-tune this a lot more than time allows me to do now. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the menu, and on the Korg we go into track controls. Now we have something called release. Release, I think we've talked about this before, is in effect, it's sustain. So I'm going to take the release up here to just over 30. Let's go 35. So now if we take our upper one, when we release that sound, we've got a nice bit of sustain to go on the end there. What you must do is add some release to the others as well. Maybe not quite as much with the cellos. The violas around 30, yeah, around there. Now let's put them all together. And that's nice because once we take our hand off, we can hear the effect of the release. Now, depending on the string sound that you're trying to create, here I'm trying to create that lush sort of ballady type orchestral string, which is why I'm using release. If you were doing a classical piece of music, maybe a faster piece of music, not a slow romantic classical piece, you could still use some release. But if it was a faster classical piece of music, maybe you wouldn't want any release at all. But to further achieve this effect of the nice sort of ballady type strings, we have another dial called attack. An attack basically means how long that string sound takes to reach its optimum volume. So I'm just going to put a little bit of attack, and you have to remember to do it on all 3. There we go. So you can probably just hear that as just a little swell on the string sound. So the full volume doesn't come on the minute I press the keys. The more attack you put on, the longer it takes to get to its optimum volume. The only other thing I'm going to do in the movie strings here, I'm just going to add a little bit of LFO. Think of that as vibrato. So if you listen to it in isolation, yeah, that's nice. So we've got just a little bit of vibrato on there. Just going to delay it a little bit. Now, again, that just means that vibrato will not come in the minute I strike the note. So you get a clean note to start with, then the vibrato kicks in. So we can put all 3 back together, and we've now got and there's that nice bit of release at the end. So I hope you agree, in a very quick and I'm going to use the word rough way. I don't mean it. What I meant is, if I was doing this for for real, I would spend a little bit more time fine adjusting the volumes, maybe tweaking the reverbs a little bit. But basically you now have our 3 layers of strings. So we've got the effect of violins, cellos, violas. I'm playing chords here, but even if you're playing single notes, each time you play a note, you are effectively hearing 3 notes come out, because you've got the note you're actually playing, the violins will be playing the octave above, and the cellos will be playing the octave below. So it almost sounds like a big chord. And of course, every time you play 2 notes, you're hearing 6 notes then. And when you play 3 notes, you've got such a big sound because you're actually hearing 9 different pitches of notes coming out there. One final thing I would do if you own a Korg product is go to your 3 lines at the top and save that as a keyboard set. And I've already done this, but let's give it a slightly different name. String Layers 2. Okay, and I'm going to save it to my user string files. There you go. The reason I've done that is because that sound is now permanently in the keyboard, unless of course you delete it. And if I want to use that sound in future, I haven't got to go through that process again. That sound is actually there, ready and waiting for me. So I hope you enjoyed that. A little bit about layering strings.